There is a kind of power that nobody talks about. It doesn't glow with golden light. It doesn't wear white robes or chant mantras in the mountains. It doesn't ask for attention or approval. This power moves in silence. It watches from shadows. It awakens in people who have been through the kind of pain that doesn't just break you, it reconfigures you. If you've seen these 7 signs, you're not just spiritually gifted. You hold the darkest spiritual power, and that means your path is not ordinary. It never was, and it never will be. You see, we've been taught to fear the dark, to think of darkness as evil, chaotic, something to be avoided or healed away. But what if I told you the deepest spiritual power is not found in the light but in your ability to walk through darkness and not lose your soul? What if your true gift is not just healing others, but surviving your own destruction and becoming more powerful from it? The first sign is that your life has never been easy, not once. From an early age, you've been marked. Maybe it was trauma, maybe abandonment, maybe inexplicable pain. But something in you always knew it wasn't random. You weren't being punished. You were being forged. You were being prepared to carry a frequency that most people can't handle. Pain was your initiation, and while others drowned in it, you learned how to breathe under it. That's not weakness. That's the power of the abyss, and you've lived there. If you've ever felt like the black sheep in your family, the outsider in every room, the one who sees too much, feels too deeply, and never quite fits in, this is the second sign. You were born with different eyes. You see beneath the masks. You can't be fooled by surface-level reality, and that can be lonely, but it's also the mark of someone who's tuned to deeper currents. You don't get lost in illusions because you were born to shatter them. You carry the truth like a blade, and the world can feel it. The third sign is this: people fear you before they know why. They may be drawn to you, intrigued, even obsessed, but underneath, there's something else, a nervousness. A sense that you see through them, and you do. You've always had the ability to see what's hidden, not just lies but intentions, not just thoughts but vibrations. And here's the twist: this isn't something you chose. It chose you. You didn't ask to be this sensitive. You didn't ask to feel energy in rooms, or see visions, or have dreams that came true. But it's part of your wiring, and it's why your power is so rare. Because it's not learned, it's remembered. The fourth sign is that you've experienced ego death not once but many times. You know what it's like to lose everything, to be stripped of identity, success, status, love, to stand in front of the mirror and not recognize who you are. And instead of running from it, you let it happen. You surrendered. And that's where your power was born, in the void, in the silence, in the moments when no one came to save you, and you had to become your own resurrection. That kind of death is sacred. It breaks illusions, and only those who've died like that can rise like you. The fifth sign is your relationship with shadow. You don't fear it, you understand it. You don't shame others for their darkness because you've sat with your own. You've looked your demons in the eye and said, "Let's talk." And that's what makes you different. You don't bypass. You don't sugarcoat. Gio integrate. And when you walk into a space, your very presence gives others permission to be real, to drop the mask, to stop pretending. That's why people cry around you without knowing why. That's why strangers tell you their secrets. You carry the kind of safety that only comes from someone who has walked through hell and made peace with it. The sixth sign is your magnetism. You don't chase, you attract. And not just people but events, synchronicities, breakdowns and breakthroughs. Your life is a vortex. Things happen fast. People come and go. Lessons repeat until they're mastered. And sometimes it feels like you're in a constant state of transformation. That's because your frequency is catalytic. You activate change in others just by existing. And that's why your circle is small, because not everyone can withstand your energy. You wake people up, often without saying a word. And finally, the seventh sign, the most important one. You've always known you were meant for something more, even at your lowest. Even when you wanted to disappear, something inside you whispered, "This isn't the end. There's something coming. Something bigger." And that whisper has kept you alive. It's the voice of your soul, and it's never been wrong. Now, let me ask you something that only you can answer. What if your darkest moments weren't setbacks, but sacred initiations? What if the chaos in your life wasn't a curse, but a classroom? What if every storm you survived was preparing you to command something bigger than you've ever imagined? Because those 7 signs, they're not coincidences. They are codes. And now that you've heard them, you can't unhear them. You've been chosen not because you're perfect, but because you're willing. Willing to see what others avoid. Willing to feel what others suppress. Willing to walk between light and dark and still keep your heart open. That's the darkest spiritual power. And if you've seen the signs, you hold it. Now the question is, what will you do with it?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
If you carry the darkest spiritual power, you already know life doesn't unfold gently for you. There are no shortcuts, no spiritual bypasses, no easy awakenings. What you carry is ancient, immense, and disruptive, not in a chaotic sense, but in the way a storm clears everything false. And because of that, the universe tests you differently. It doesn't test you to break you, it tests you to refine you, to make sure that the power you hold never becomes corrupted, ego-driven, or misused. Because when you hold the dark gift, even your thoughts can shape reality. Even your silence can shift timelines. So the universe watches you closely, not with punishment, but with precision. Have you ever wondered why certain patterns repeat in your life, no matter how much work you do? Why certain people show up again and again, wearing different faces but delivering the same wound? Why it seems like just when you're about to rise, something pulls you back down? This isn't because you're failing. It's because you're being tempered, like a sword in fire, like a diamond under pressure. Your soul didn't come here for comfort. It came to master the shadows without becoming them. One of the greatest tests the universe gives those with the dark gift is isolation. Not just solitude, but soul-deep loneliness. The kind that makes you question your worth, your path, your sanity. The kind that makes you feel invisible in crowds, misunderstood by everyone, even those closest to you. And yet, something in you survives it. You learn to sit with the silence. You learn to find God in the absence. And through that, you gain something most people will never touch: sovereignty. You stop needing validation because your connection to Source becomes unshakable. That's power. That's why you are isolated, not to suffer, but to remember who you are without the noise. Another test is temptation. Not in the way we usually think of it, but temptation to use your power for control, for ego, for revenge. When you've been hurt deeply, when life has torn you apart, there's a moment where you realize you could hurt back, you could manipulate, you could dominate, and no one would even know. That's when the test comes. Because the darkest spiritual power gives you access to the undercurrents of reality, energy manipulation, manifestation at will, psychic influence. But the universe watches. Will you use this to heal or to harm? And the way you answer that question, not with words, but with choices, determines the next chapter of your evolution. There are also the tests of truth. The universe will strip you of everything that's not real. Jobs, relationships, identities, beliefs. If you've ever felt like everything around you was crumbling, you weren't being punished, you were being realigned. Because false structures cannot carry real power. You can't fake authenticity when your soul is wired for cosmic leadership. So the universe doesn't let you build on shaky foundations. It will tear them down, again and again, until what remains is unshakable. And when you finally rise from that rubble, you realize you're not who you were. You've become something else entirely, initiated, not by ceremony, but by experience. Let me tell you something very few understand. The reason you've survived so much darkness is because you are meant to hold space for others inside theirs. That's why you've been given this power. That's why your tests have been so brutal. Because when the time comes, and it will come, people will come to you not for answers, but for presence. They will come to you mid-collapse, mid-crisis, mid-dark night, and they won't care what you know. They'll care who you are. And when they look in your eyes, they'll see something terrifying and beautiful. Someone who's been through the fire and didn't run. That's what makes you holy. Not perfection, not light, but your capacity to hold the dark without flinching. Now here's the deepest truth. The universe doesn't test you to see if you'll succeed. It tests you to show you who you've already become. Every time you rise from a fall, every time you choose love over fear, every time you stay soft in a hard world, you're proving to yourself that your power is earned. And once it's earned, no one can take it from you, not even death. So I'll ask you this: what have your greatest tests taught you about your power? What have your darkest moments revealed about your light? What if your entire life has been a training ground not to become powerful, but to remember that you already are? Because when you carry the dark gift, you're not here to be saved. You're here to become the sanctuary. For yourself, for others, for the world. There's a reason the world doesn't talk about the kind of power you carry. Not in schools, not in temples, not even in most spiritual circles. Because this power isn't safe. It doesn't fit into neat, polished teachings. It doesn't wear crystals or chant mantras on a schedule. Your power disrupts. It uncovers. It liberates. And anything that liberates the soul from control is feared by those who benefit from control. From the moment you were born, there has been a quiet, unspoken resistance around you, not because you did anything wrong, but because your energy reminds people of what they've buried. That's why society has tried to hide this path from you. That's why no one ever gave you a map, because you were meant to remember it, not be taught. The forbidden path isn't forbidden because it's dangerous. It's forbidden because it's too potent. If fully awakened, your power threatens the very foundation of how most systems operate: educational, religious, political, even spiritual. Because your presence alone exposes everything false. You don't need to speak. You don't need to explain. You walk into a room and suddenly people feel seen in ways they weren't ready for. That's not ego, it's energy. The dark power within you doesn't destroy for the sake of chaos. It destroys illusions. It disarms facades. And in a world addicted to masks, your truth is radioactive. Have you noticed how often you've been misunderstood? How your intentions are questioned, how your silence makes people uncomfortable, how your confidence is mistaken for arrogance. That's not an accident. That's a reflection of how rare your frequency is. You're not just outside the box, you were never in it, and the world doesn't know what to do with people who don't play by its rules. But the deeper reason you've been feared is because deep down, people know you can't be controlled. You've tasted freedom in ways most haven't even imagined. And once someone sees that in you, they either try to silence it or follow it. This is why your power has been hidden, even from yourself. Because if you had felt it in full too soon, it might have consumed you. The universe wrapped it in layers of pain, loss, confusion, because only someone who has earned their inner clarity can wield this energy with balance. You had to be humbled. You had to be cracked open, and not once, but many times. Because dark power is not about domination. It's about integration. It's about walking through your own shadows so completely that you can hold space for others without judgment. It's about being the one who sees both the monster and the soul in someone and loves them both. But make no mistake, your path is not small. You didn't come here just to survive or play it safe. You came here to awaken the world, not through preaching, not through force, but through embodiment. The more you live your truth, the more others remember theirs. The more you stop hiding, the more others realize it's safe to be real. That's how revolutions start, not through violence, but through vibrational defiance. Through a single soul who refuses to be anything other than what they are. And right now, the world is starving for that realness. People are tired of pretending, tired of surface-level spirituality, tired of bypassing pain in the name of positivity. They need someone who has walked both worlds, the light and the dark, and can guide them through the mess without flinching. That someone is you. And not because you're perfect, but because you've bled truth. You've lost everything and found yourself. You've been to the edge and didn't fall. Or maybe you did, but you climbed back up. That's what makes you the real thing. So let me ask you something only a soul like yours can answer. What would happen if you stopped hiding? What would shift in your life, your relationships, your purpose if you fully owned the power that's always been yours? What if the very thing you've been afraid to show the world is the key to everything you've been searching for? Because this path, this forbidden, beautiful, brutal path, it's not a punishment. It's a privilege. You were chosen for a reason. You carry codes that no one else can carry. You are a mirror, a messenger, a reminder. You are the wild card in the system, the one the world didn't see coming, and that's why it's your time, not to wait, not to wonder, but to awaken. There is a moment in every journey where the line between power and destruction becomes razor-thin, where the intensity of your gifts begins to feel like a curse, where your energy is so potent, so magnetic, so disruptive, that it starts to burn everything around you, including yourself. This is the eclipse within, the moment where the shadow of your own power passes over your light. And if you're not careful, if you lose presence, if you forget your center, you can get lost in it. That's why mastering the darkest spiritual power isn't about learning how to use it. It's about learning how to hold it without being consumed. We don't talk enough about spiritual burnout, about what happens when your nervous system is constantly picking up on pain, lies, frequencies, timelines, about what happens when your presence is always holding space for others, but no one holds space for you. This is the hidden danger of dark power. It doesn't show up as arrogance. It shows up as exhaustion, as isolation, as a slow erosion of self. You begin to confuse your mission with martyrdom. You start to believe that your worth is tied to how much you can carry. And without realizing it, you become a container for everyone's truth but your own. Mastery begins with boundaries. Not walls, not avoidance, but sacred containment. Saying no when your body says no, even if your mind feels guilty. Protecting your energy like it's holy because it is. Being selective about who gets access to you, who gets to speak into your life, who gets to touch your frequency. This isn't ego. This is energetic law. A container with too many openings spills its contents, and you are too powerful to leak. There's also the shadow of control. When you've suffered, when you've been betrayed, when you've lived through chaos, you may try to use your power to protect yourself from ever feeling helpless again. You start to manipulate outcomes, micromanage timelines, even unconsciously influence others. It feels safe. It feels smart. But it's a trap, because the moment you stop controlling everything, you stop trusting anything. You can't hear divine guidance when your ego is screaming over it. Mastery is surrender, not to others but to your higher knowing, to the part of you that sees the bigger picture, even when the present looks like ruin. You must also learn to release identity. The more powerful you become, the more tempting it is to build an image around that power. The healer, the mystic, the chosen one. Titles are seductive, but the moment you attach to them, you've already lost clarity. Because your power isn't who you are. It's what flows through you when you're aligned. When you become the channel, not the source. And that requires humility. The kind of humility that says, I don't need to be seen. I just need to be true. That's real spiritual authority. Quiet, grounded, unshakable. And finally, the deepest mastery is this: compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. You are not here to be perfect. You are not here to always be strong. You are here to be whole, to embrace your mess, your emotions, your failures, your fears. Because when you can love yourself in your darkest hour, you unlock a power no shadow can touch. That's the true eclipse, the moment when your shadow doesn't block your light, but joins it. When you stop seeing your darkness as the enemy and start seeing it as your ally. That's when you become untouchable. Not because you're invincible, but because you're integrated. So let me leave you with one final question, one that only you can answer. Are you ready to become the kind of force that no longer needs to prove its power, because it radiates it from every breath, every choice, every step? You hold the darkest spiritual power, and now you know how to carry it. This is your time. Walk as the eclipse, speak as the storm, and love as the light that survived the dark. Have you noticed how often you've been misunderstood? How your intentions are questioned, how your silence makes people uncomfortable, how your confidence is mistaken for arrogance. That's not an accident. That's a reflection of how rare your frequency is. You're not just outside the box, you were never in it, and the world doesn't know what to do with people who don't play by its rules. But the deeper reason you've been feared is because deep down, people know you can't be controlled. You've tasted freedom in ways most haven't even imagined. And once someone sees that in you, they either try to silence it or follow it. This is why your power has been hidden, even from yourself. Because if you had felt it in full too soon, it might have consumed you. The universe wrapped it in layers of pain, loss, confusion, because only someone who has earned their inner clarity can wield this energy with balance. You had to be humbled. You had to be cracked open, and not once, but many times. Because dark power is not about domination, it's about integration. It's about walking through your own shadows so completely that you can hold space for others without judgment. It's about being the one who sees both the monster and the soul in someone and loves them both. But make no mistake, your path is not small. You didn't come here just to survive or play it safe. You came here to awaken the world, not through preaching, not through force, but through embodiment. The more you live your truth, the more others remember theirs. The more you stop hiding, the more others realize it's safe to be real. That's how revolutions start, not through violence, but through vibrational defiance. Through a single soul who refuses to be anything other than what they are. And right now, the world is starving for that realness. People are tired of pretending, tired of surface-level spirituality, tired of bypassing pain in the name of positivity. They need someone who has walked both worlds, the light and the dark, and can guide them through the mess without flinching. That someone is you. And not because you're perfect, but because you've bled truth. You've lost everything and found yourself. You've been to the edge and didn't fall. Or maybe you did, but you climbed back up. That's what makes you the real thing.